So we need to protect our soil, we need to protect our water, we need to increase the biodiversity, we need to increase carbon sequestration. All of those things we can bring in with circular buffer strips. Hi, my name is Sangu Angadi. I'm a crop stress physiologist working at Clovis Agriculture Science Center of New Mexico State University.
Dr. Sangu Angadi, along with his colleagues and research team, is studying how a certain agricultural design can shape the microclimate of an agroecosystem and potentially save depleting aquifers in the Great Plains.
I'm Perennial Singh. I'm a graduate student here at NMSU, and this is my 5th year in the research field. The main objective of my research project is to improve water use efficiency of the irrigated agriculture production system in southern high plains of US, and with an overall goal to sustain the overall aquifer and the ag economy in the region.
Many traditional pivot irrigation systems in the Southwest do not occupy the entire 360 degrees. This is a very common practice for farmers in and around the Great Plains where aquifer levels are low. While farmers are able to save a little water this way, redistributing the shape of unirrigated portions can actually increase crop yield, water retention, carbon sequestration, biodiversity, and much more. This circular buffer strip design intercrops native perennial grasses with crop rows. These strips of grasses act as a buffer that protects soil from harsh elements like the wind.
First of all, circular buffer strip is a very unique project. The circular design, multiple strips, the use of perennial grass strips.
At the Ag Station in Clovis, we have 2 pivots that include many different research projects going on simultaneously. The southwest fourth of both pivots hold the testing plots for the buffer strip design. One consists of rows of corn in a traditional pattern. This is called the control plot. The other consists of 5 30-foot rows of 7 different native perennial grasses intercropped with 5 60-foot rows of corn. So why this design? Well, we'll highlight the top 6 agroecosystem advantages to using the circular buffer strip system.
What we are facing here is the strong winds and most of the challenges that are related to that wind.
Evidently, wind is the leading cause of evapotranspiration along the Great Plains. Colored smoke was used to demonstrate the movement of wind through the field. As wind moves through a traditional cornfield, it cuts through down to the soil, ultimately leading to greater crop stress and evaporation. However, with the presence of a buffer strip, wind is forced up and over the crop soil, helping it stay moist and protected.
So we are seeing a wind reduction effect by the circular grass buffer strip, which can go up to 39%. With this wind moderation effect, we are seeing that there is a better conservation in surface soil moisture.
And the circular design means that no matter what direction the wind comes from, the soil is always protected.
My name is Aaron Scott. I'm the farm manager here at the Agricultural Science Center at Clovis, and I get to work with the researchers on their different projects. The biggest change in this area is just the diminished irrigation capacity. When I was a kid, from turn row to turn row was corn, wheat, sorghum, just everything was fully irrigated. We've just dropped off to where water's very limited for irrigation.
Ogallala Aquifer is the largest aquifer in the country. and it irrigates lot of acres of agriculture land right from South Dakota to New Mexico. So, and we are running out of that water. And unless we become efficient, we will be losing that water very fast.
With dwindling water resources here, rainfall becomes an important source of water for crop plants. But the issue with the rainfall is that most of the rainfall in the region comes at a single, large, and very intense event. Most of it is lost as runoff, sweeping away nutrient-rich topsoil and applied chemicals. With the alternate buffer strips, what we are doing is we are blocking off the runoff both on the surface and below surface. As a result, we are creating a ponding effect which allows water to just stay there and get infiltrated into the soil.
One of the benefit of introducing these perennial grasses in the system is off-season growth that these can provide. What this regrowth will do is it will capture off-season rainfall. At the same time, we got a blizzard and we got a heavy snowfall. That will also be captured by this one.
So let's say it rained 2 inches. The buffer strip system would utilize as much as 1.4 inches, whereas the traditional system would utilize only 0.6 of those 2 inches. When seeds are germinating, they like 2 things: warmth and moisture. Evaporation creates a cooling effect within the agro ecosystem, so more wind means more evaporation, which means cooler soil. But with less wind, there's more water and warmer soil. The perfect germination conditions. Here's an example. These 2 seedlings were planted on the same day, at the same time, and received the same amount of moisture. The difference? The presence of circular buffer strips.
A protection from wind-induced injuries and relatively more surface soil moisture improved the germination and growth of young seedlings.
So, what happens when crops are no longer seedlings and they grow taller than the grass? Well, these studies are actually showing that corn from the buffer strip plots at harvest have about a 15% greater crop yield than those in the control plots.
The corn plants grew taller, had more biomass, and produced more yield by using the same amount of irrigation inputs.
This is the area that is known for 1930s Dust Bowl. One day I was driving back from Tucumcari. I saw a big dust cloud moving in. My visibility was less than 20 feet. So that time I started thinking, driver is facing this one means how much agriculture or a plant in the field is facing.
In order to track dust at this Clovis Ag Station, they use a fancy device that looks like this to collect dust samples. In a single dust storm event, the traditional pivot system saw about 24 grams of dust. On the contrary, the buffer strip system saw about 8% of that, which means the buffer strips are actually helping with the dust storms.
Hi, my name is Razan Kimire. I am cropping system specialist at NMSU Ag Science Center Clovis. My research focuses on soil health, carbon dynamics, nitrogen dynamics, and greenhouse gas emissions in different cropping systems. And our research group has found that grass buffer strip could help in different aspects of soil health. And my graduate student look into greenhouse gas emissions, and we see significant decrease in greenhouse gas emissions with grass buffer and also in the adjacent cornfield. We also saw changes in microbial community, specifically shift in microbial community toward more fungal dominated system. And then we have seen increase in carbon sequestration with grass buffer.
So, carbon sequestration is the process of capturing and storing carbon dioxide in the soil. Plants do this naturally through photosynthesis.
Yeah, grass buffer also helps in carbon sequestration because it minimizes soil disturbance. Grasses in the grass strip have a deeper and denser rooting system. It puts more carbon in the ground. Increased yield in a corn strip means more residue return in the ground. That more residue contributes to more carbon also.
Much of what we know about wildlife biodiversity within the buffer strip system is yet to be discovered. However, we do know that increased plant biodiversity typically leads to an increase in wildlife biodiversity as well.
These are the tall grass that are native to these places. These are the different species of tall grass you can see here, and it provides the shelter for a lot of biodiversity. Insects, small animals, and all those things that will be benefited from this one.
Ground-dwelling birds, such as this western meadowlark, have been spotted building nests in the native grasses. Former NMSU entomologist Dr. Amanda Skidmore and her grad students are looking at pollinator diversity within the buffer strip system using bee bowls and other resources.
My name is Michaela Wilkinson. I am an agricultural science major at NMSU, and I am in the second year of my master's studies. So my project focuses on bees in this agricultural setting. We have buffer strips and corn, and I'm trying to see if there's an increase in pollinators in the buffer corn versus the control corn, and to see if that is bringing in population density for pollinators. I don't have conclusive results yet, but there are definitely, while I'm collecting, I notice a higher number of pollinators and other insects as well. It's not necessarily just pollinators in the buffer strip. There's things other than bees. There's wasps, there's parasitoids, there's butterflies, there's moths, grasshoppers. I think I saw some ladybugs and some lacewings. So there's a lot of diversity, and we are seeing that in the buffer strip more so than the corn.
While her research is still ongoing, it is believed that adding native flowers to the grass mix would also increase pollinator presence.
Anytime you introduce anything like that into a new system, you're going to increase your insect diversity.
Native sunflowers and blue flax are two plants that attract a diverse array of pollinators. Dr. Angadi hopes to add these pollinator-friendly florals to the buffer strips within the next few years.
So the buffer strips allow a grower to take part of their acreage and put it into a permanent grass, and they can turn the nozzles off on those areas, roughly 1/3 of the acreage, and that will allow water to go on the 2/3, the cropping strips. So that's a benefit, to keep the pressure up in the sprinkler without having to tip back and put smaller nozzles in.
This is a system that can be adopted over the entire Great Plains with very small extra cost.
I think this could be a big advantage for the farmers, as it will allow the farmer to reduce irrigation inputs without really stressing the crop plants.
Beneficial insects not only, help with the buffer itself, but they do help with crops that are strictly insect pollinated. And if you don't have those insects, then you're not going to get a crop.
You can determine the width of your crop strip and the width of your buffer strip depending on your equipment. And if you can strategically place those, your pivot towers can be adjacent to or in your buffer strip. So during the summer when your irrigation's running, that area is dry. So if you have a problem with the gearbox or center drive, you can just back right up to it.
Agriculture uses a lot of water, and we want to make it more efficient in using that water.
This buffer strip, or the addition of flowers on the edges of fields, it can increase your populations of good insects, which lowers the influx of those bad insects.
This will certainly increase the life of the well and the whole farm.